o'clock, so I'm ready to
All right,
call
I'm
them.
gonna admit everybody now.
Okay. Let me know when we can go.
We are recording.
Okay, and you can go. Nobody left in the waiting.
Paul's muted,
Yeah, Paul's
just so you know.
muted.
Oh, sorry, Paul. All right.
There you go.
Good.
Okay, we're gonna call the meeting to order. Lisa?
As required by the Open Public Meetings Act of 1975, adequate notice this meeting was provided on January 14, 2021 by publication of notice in the Express Times and posting of said notice in municipal building on the same date. Mayor Barsney?
Yes, I hear.
Mr. Baylor?
Here.
Mr. Beam?
Here.
Mr. Marqueta?
Here.
Ms. McDermott?
Here.
Mr. Lavery?
Here.
And Mr. Finelli?
Here.
Okay, looking for a motion to accept the minutes from the regular meeting of December 17th and the reorganization meeting of January 7th. Anybody want to make a motion to accept those?
I'll make the
Approve those?
motion.
Anybody want a second?
Second.
Okay, anybody have any questions, redactions, anything?
No.
Lisa?
Mayor Barsney?
Yes.
Mr. Baylor?
Yes.
Mr. Beam?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
And Ms. McDermott?
Yes.
Okay, anybody have anything they want pulled from the treasurer's report or the January bill list?
No.
Okay, with that, anybody want to make a motion to accept the treasurer's report and January bill list?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. Anybody have any other questions? Roll call?
Mayor Barsney?
Yes.
Mr. Baylor?
Yes.
Mr. Beam?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Ms. McDermott?
Yes.
Looking for a motion to accept the tax collector's tax and sewer reports for December 2020 and the year-end report. Anybody want to make the motion to accept and adopt?
I'll make the motion.
Anybody want a second?
I'll second it.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call?
Mayor Barsney?
Yes.
Mr. Baylor?
Yes.
Mr. Beam?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
And Ms. McDermott?
Yes.
Looking for a motion to accept the police department report, the DPW report, the township clerk report, and the clerk report for December of 2020. Anybody want to make the motion? I'll make the motion. Anybody want a second?
Second.
Anybody have any questions, comments, or discussions on it?
No.
Roll call?
Mayor Barsney?
Yes.
Mr. Baylor?
Yes.
Mr. Beam?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Ms. McDermott?
There's I'm
Yes.
sorry. Frank, can you open up and see if the chief or Joe Mexi want to make any report or comments? Do you know? They didn't
Yeah,
ask me.
let me, I think he's on his phone, so let me unmute it. What, so you want me to ask Joe if you
Yeah,
want Joe
does
to
he,
say
did he want
something?
to say anything, or is it okay if we accept his
All right,
report?
yeah. I asked him to unmute, so he's still, this phone's still showing muted. Oh, there he is. Joe, is that you?
Good evening, everybody.
Yeah.
No, not
That's
really. Just a
Okay,
light winter so far, so we're good shape.
Okay, yeah, we haven't heard from you in a while, so I figured I'd better at least open up and see you. I didn't want to just pass over you, okay?
Well, later down the agenda, I'll have some stuff to talk about.
I figured that, yep, thanks. Is Chief Hummer on, Frank?
Yes.
You want to just see if he has anything you want to say, Frank?
I'm good.
You're good? Okay,
I'm
thanks,
good.
Rich. Okay. Committee reports. Anybody have any committee reports?
I got one thing.
Okay.
So I just want to make an announcement. You know, recently we had voted to write the letter disagreeing with the designation of the Franklin farm to an area in need of redevelopment. We had the lawyer come down that was fighting against it. There was a recent ruling that came down from the DCA, and the DCA has denied the change of the land as a designation of an area in need of redevelopment. So the DCA, and Mike, if I say anything wrong, correct me. Based on the state plan, they stated that that area, given it that designation is against the state plan, and they cited one other thing, which I wasn't clear on. There was another ordinance that they put in there or some kind of law. Anyway, the DCA turned it down, which is good news for us because we had opposed that changing in that designation. So just wanted to report that.
So they
Thank you.
can't build
They
the
can't-
warehouse.
No, they
No, they
can't
can.
change it to an area in need of redevelopment, but they can still, they could still zone it for a warehouse. But
Okay.
that doesn't mean they won't get fought by that lawyer again, and that lawyer now has the DCA letter on his side. So he has a little bit more ammunition, I would think. I don't know, Mike.
Yeah,
But-
it's kind of funny because the lawyer sent me a copy of the complaint that they had filed and said, hey, we don't want any money. I probably should talk about this in executive, but since it's pretty much at this point over, as far as the redevelopment zone goes, he said, maybe you guys could, he sent me a copy of the complaint that they had filed, but usually when they ask for an area to be designated an area in need of redevelopment, they do that so that they can get they need pilot funding, which is payment in lieu of taxes in order to fund the project, or to make it viable. So that's definitely a major setback.
Okay,
But
good.
they could always pursue a regular rezoning
Sure.
on it,
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
But most likely, that would get challenged, and now he has the DCA letter saying that's not the proper use. So I don't know how far they would take it, but I guess we'll find out.
Right.
So anyway, that's all I had, Bob.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Anybody else?
No.
Professional reports? Mike Finelli, you have anything?
Just one thing. Good evening, everyone. The DOT grant for this year that we got on Rickline Hill Road, Section 2, which is basically from 57 north to the end. Township received $105,000. We've compared the grant to our estimate and so forth, and I'm happy to report that, as there always is, there is a shortfall between all the costs for the project, soft costs, and obviously the improvement cost to the grant amount. This shortfall is fairly minor. It's in the neighborhood of $8,000. So you can do one of a few things. If you want to try to get the project moving forward and get it paved, obviously this summer, give us the go ahead to kind of get started on the plans for the project. There's no rush, in all honesty. We can just bring it up each month, and at some point we can, obviously go forward then. And those are basically your options. At some point, we're going to have to obviously do the project. It's a question of when you want to get started.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Sure thing.
Mike Labor, you have anything?
The only thing I have is the next thing on the agenda, the Recreation Committee membership, that appointment. I looked over some emails and text messages, and I think that the only thing the committee would have to do is make a motion to accept the resignation of the one member and then second it and vote on it. And as far as I'm concerned, the committee members resigned.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Sure.
Okay. We don't have any other professionals on, do we? We're good? Okay, old business. Rec committee. I'll make a motion that we accept the resignation of Lauren Stanford from the rec committee. Anybody want a second?
I'll second.
Any questions, comments, discussion?
No.
Roll call?
Mayor Barsney?
Yes.
Mr. Baylor?
Yes.
Mr. Beam?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Ms. McDermott?
Yes.
And I want to thank her for her years of service to the town. Was appreciated by a lot of people.
Okay, I want to appoint Don Motek to the unexpired term, ending 12/31 of 21. And then Colleen Colucci, Melissa Colucci, and Richard Goldring for terms that expire 12/31/23. Anybody want to make a motion to approve those appointments?
I make a
I'll
motion.
make the
that-
motion.
Sorry,
No, go ahead.
Lily
Make
made
the
the
motion.
motion. Brian, you want a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, anybody have any questions, comments, discussion on that?
No.
Roll call?
Mayor Barsney?
Yes.
Mr. Baylor?
Yes,
Mr. Beam?
yes,
Mr. Marqueta?
yes,
Ms. McDermott?
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution 2321, appointment of the municipal court judge, Louis Mellinger Esquire, from January 21 to December of 23. It's a 3-year term. I make the motion to make that, adopt that resolution. Anybody want a second?
I'll
second it,
Okay, anybody have any questions, comments, discussion on that? Roll call?
Mayor Barsney?
Yes.
Mr. Baylor?
yes,
Mr. Beam?
yes,
Mr. Marqueta?
yes,
Ms. McDermott?
Yes.
I'm looking for a motion to adopt resolution 2421 as a tax sale certificate cancellation. Anybody want to make the motion for that?
I'll make the motion.
Anybody want a second?
second,
Any questions, comments, discussion?
No.
Roll call?
Mayor Barsney?
Yes.
Mr. Baylor?
yes,
Mr. Beam?
yes,
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes,
Ms. McDermott?
Yes.
Okay. Next up is the 2021 lawn mowing discussion. I guess Joe and Paul, you two are going to discuss that or bring that up?
yeah, Joe's gonna do all the talking. He's done all the math and such. Are you there, Joe?
Yes, I'm here. So, when we discussed last year budget time for the fourth full-time guy, the committee asked me to look into taking over the mowing from the contractor and stuff. So I put together a report with hours and acres and stuff like that to make, should be in your packet there. So with the equipment that I have right now, I could probably handle taking care of all the town properties. But when we start discussing the total acres with the schools and stuff and trying to stay within our work hours compared to how many acres per hour we can mow, we're either running into overtime or extra days or things like that, where if we think about it, if you want to take it over in another year, the schools, we have to get a piece of equipment or pay overtime. My plan is this year coming up, if we just take over our properties, one full-time guy, the seasonal part-time guy that mows Thomas Stewart Park, add 8 hours to him, and my other yearly part-time guys will be doing mowing, parks and recreation, general maintenance, setting up the baseball fields, dragging them once a week, twice a week. In the spring, everybody will get all the fields set up. And in the fall, for the fall sports, they'll need help getting the field set up. Then they'll maintain the lines once the fields are laid out, because that's pretty intense. Matter of fact, it takes us soccer season and stuff in the fall, them 8-9 fields takes us about a week and a half to get them all laid out, measured out and stuff like that. So that's my plan. If we want to take over mowing the schools, which will be a piece of equipment, which I did get a quote in there, we're talking about $62,000. So that's a budget item. And even if we want to do that this year, this machine wouldn't be here until after budget's approved. It's on one of the co-ops that we are in, but you do the ordinance and stuff like that, we're talking about July, August. So my thought was, if the committee wants to do it, DPW will take care of the township property. So that would be, right now, we're mowing Thomas Stewart Park and the detention areas in the township on a every other week schedule. So we'll be adding the municipal building, municipal park, Beatty's Park, Steckers Park. Okay. And then since it'll be a change to the contract because those town properties that we'd be taking over and the schools are on the contract now, we'd probably have to rebid the schools out and probably be able to do the same like we did our other lawn mowing plan was the first year. And if the committee chooses to move forward with the DPW, we could just do this year and then the contract's over. We have the equipment. We can start April of 2022 mowing everything. Or just keep the contractor doing the schools and the DPW taking care of our properties that way.
So Joe, basically by us taking over the municipal building, Steckers Park, Beatty's, and the other town stuff, including the park, which we've been doing right now, that saves the township, what's that, somewhere around $27,000 a year that we're not paying a contractor?
Correct. Altogether in 2020's budget, we had in there for all the municipal, the schools, which was 29.7, and those three properties was an additional 17,325. The contract was a total of $47,025. So adding the municipal building, Steckers Park, and Beatty's Park would be saving $17,325 this year.
Right.
And like I said, that was the contract last year. So we all know what happens when we rebid stuff and stuff like that. It usually goes up.
Well, although last year there was a few people that were interested in bidding on it, I haven't had anybody reach out to do that. But I'm just trying to look. So from the very first time where we had a contractor doing everything to now, we've actually kind of saved ourselves, somewhere is, probably around 40,000, give or take.
Yeah.
Which is back
With
into
us
the
doing
federal fund.
with us doing Thomas Stewart Park and the detention areas, that was added to the bid when that contract was initially made. That would have been an additional $33,750.
Right. So, but the bottom line is the machine would pay for itself in 2 years.
Yes.
Right.
And that would be a machine that we'd have for definitely 15 to 20 years.
Right. Exactly. That'd be a long-term machine. All right. So that's actually part of the budgeting process. But what we need to know right now is we have to put the lawn mowing out for bid for just the two schools. That's what you're thinking, right?
I could cover the township properties, that, and then we just have to rebid the two schools. And if you choose to do it 1 year, we get that machine this year in the budget towards the middle of the end of the year. This way here, I'm ready to go by April. We know how long it takes our budget process and stuff. And by the time it's approved, we're talking May, June, and then getting the equipment. We probably, even if we followed that track, probably won't see that machine until July.
No, right. So Mike Lavery, if we pull out of the current contract with the current guy that was bidding to take over some of that property, we can cease that contract right now, because I thought we automatically extended it for 2 years, and this would be the end of the beginning of the second year. Can we do that?
I'm going to have to go back and look at that, committeeman, because I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'll go back and look at the contract.
Joe, does that sound right to you?
Actually, this 2021 would be the third year of the contract. Now I know, and I think the wording was first year, and then I didn't know if it was per year or if it was if we were going to agree to it, it would be for the next two. And I forget the exact wording, how it went.
All right, so we'll need to check that wording because if we can, then we've got to get this bid out pretty ASAP. Because we just can't take the municipal park, Stackers and Beatties out of the contract without creating an issue. So we really have to rebid it, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Got it. So
Okay.
we'll need to find that out pretty darn fast.
Anyone else have any questions?
Mm-mm.
I'm good. Anybody else?
I'm good.
Good.
Hey, Frank, if for some reason it says that you disabled my video, so I don't know what the deal is, but
Where are you? Oh, did it? You must have shut yourself off for a second. Let me see. I don't know, there's nothing in here that says you're disabled.
it says you cannot start the video because the host has disabled it, so I don't know.
Try now.
Yep,
There
you
go. Thanks. Okay.
The mayor's back.
Better.
Oh, maybe people liked it better without seeing my face. Environmental Committee, the groundwater assessment. Does anybody, Mike, do you know much about this since you handle us and Franklin Township?
Michael and I have had a conversation about this probably about 4.5 months ago. And although I know that the state DEP tested and things like that, I kind of thought it was in their whatever process they take. And as I've spoke to some people that are impacted by this, I said it took them 20, 30 years to get the Powhacon's thing straightened out. God only knows how long it's going to take for them to even work on that. But I'm going to chime it over to Mike. Have you heard anything more since the last time we talked?
Yeah. And this was spurred on by I think actually it was a text message from Bob that relayed a letter from the Township Environmental Commission. And he basically said, could you look into this a little bit? And we went back and forth a couple of times. So here's the deal. There's a contaminant by the name of dioxane, 1,4. That's the way it's termed. And it has come up as last year, it came up, no, actually 2019. It came up in some tests for properties in Franklin. So I got involved with it a little bit in that capacity. And more recently, it's come up on a couple properties in Greenwich. The properties in question is along Willow Grove Road, and Willow Grove Road, as you all know, kind of goes from Greenwich into Franklin, and so forth. Jeff Haggerty's house, if you know where Jeff lives, he's tested positive. I was involved with a fella. There were two guys kind of running this investigation for the DEP in the context of Franklin. Their names Mark Herzberg and Fred Mumford. Not that I expect anybody to know either one of them. But it allowed me some contact information and so forth. So I gave Mark Herzberg a call the other day in preparation for tonight and Bob's information to see what was going on in Greenwich. Basically, this contaminant, and it's a just so you know what it is. It's a cleaning solvent. It's actually already present in a lot of shampoos, I understand, things that we all use every day. This material exists, obviously in very small amounts. There's a problem with the cleanup associated with this, because unlike the TCE contaminant, which was the prior groundwater contamination in the area, you can't get a cleaner, to obviously take care of this water as it's brought into your house. There's no mechanism, unfortunately. So they are presently taking additional samples, drilling some more wells to try to monitor the extent of this. That work is actually supposed to happen this spring, where the additional testing and so forth occurs. For anybody that has tested positive, they are getting supplied bottled water by the DEP, which is, I guess it's it's some solution, if you want to call it that. So that, I mean, that's what's happening. It fortunately hasn't come up in that many homes yet, but it's out there. It's and if you've read the environmental committee's memo that they sent to the township committee, which goes back to November of last year, there is no relationship, and this is important, there's no relationship to the prior contamination plume and that contaminant. It's a separate matter and a separate contaminant. You know, they're not sure what they're going to do as far as a long-term fix. I don't think they intend to be supplying people with bottled water for perpetuity. That's the temporary fix, if you want to call it that, again. And they are aware of it. It's on their radar screen. And they're going to try to get, they have not located a source of the contamination. In some respects, they said it actually could be caused by just septics based upon the fact that this chemical exists in some household cleaning products. So it's a little spooky in that respect, because they're, you know, we probably are exposed to this on a daily basis. Obviously not at the levels that are threshold levels for contamination. The DEP's involved. I told them after I talked to this fellow the other day that I would be back in touch after we had this meeting. I said it's going to be discussed at the township committee meeting coming up this week. And he would, you know, fellow's been nice and helpful and giving me, answering all the questions. But that's, I guess, the long of it, not the long and short of it. So,
Lisa, Joe.
Yeah, Joe is here. Joe. Yeah, he's on the environmental, right, Joe?
Right, yes, that's, I expected to be covering a lot of what Mike just covered for us.
There's snowing on your end of the township, Joe.
It did. You like that?
Next year, you better get out there.
That was our one storm. I wanted to add a few things to what Mike just said. The New Jersey DEP has been involved. And in fact, they're the ones that tested at that Haggerty's. They just for the record, they came up with a measurement last April that's about 10 times higher than the accepted limit, the state accepted limit. I'm not sure what drilling Mike's referring to, so I'm curious what new wells or samples are being done. So I'm curious to confirm if those guys that you referenced, Mike, are representing the DEP or Franklin Township, or, you know, how would they cover looking into our over the border into our township?
Okay, Joe, the Franklin Township, the contamination and dioxane existence has been on the radar down in Trenton with the DEP since 2019. Now Greenwich and dioxane is on the radar as of 2020. And they assume it's the same plume because the houses are all, they're, in essence, they're right over the boundary of one another.
Mhm.
So, they're looking at it on the whole, very, very similar in some respects to the TCE problem and the Pohatcong OU2 project, just a different contaminant. So no, they're going to be doing some other testing coming up, and the wells I spoke of are new wells that they're going to be putting in this spring, so they said. What happened was COVID and the impacts on their department and beyond kind of obviously slowed up progress in 2020. So they didn't really get much further, but now they're looking to move forward now this year.
And that would include wherever the plume takes them, right? They're not concerned just with Franklin.
Oh, no. It's good. Greenwich is just as much on the map as Franklin is right now.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely the case.
What led me to connect this to what our letter said, the previous TCE contaminants is a statement from the EPA. I'll just read one sentence here. Dioxane is a likely contaminant at many sites contaminated with chlorinated solvents, particularly trichloroethane. So I thought that was a connection that should be brought up. If they've already considered it, that's good. And yes, you're right that there doesn't seem to be any kind of filtering strategy at the well or at the home that can resolve this. And everyone's getting big bottles of water, apparently. Well, the people that have been identified. Okay, let me make sure. There was a couple of questions I had. Let me make sure we.
Well, Joe, you were thinking, I was under the impression that there is a filtration system that can be installed that would take care of the dioxin.
Not from what I've been able to find, or Bob. Bob didn't think so either.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with Joe on that one. I don't think there is. So that's the confounding part of this.
Yeah, it travels in aquifers. It mixes very well with water. It is not biodegradable. So it's apparently those things are why there is a plume, and the fact that it can't be filtered out is concerning, obviously.
So where exactly again is this hitting Greenwich? What area?
The northeast section, Frank, kind of out by where I live, where Willow Grove Road as you go into Franklin.
So the area that hasn't been remediated yet, right? Because your area has been remediated.
Well, that's the real interesting part of this, because when it hit Franklin, the Franklin people that came up positive were literally right down the street from part of the water main extension, and they politicked with the DEP and the EPA. And the EPA has washed their hands of this and said it's a DEP problem for an extension of the water main, the new water main, down to their properties. And it literally isn't that far away. And everybody's, including Rio Tinto, because they were around at that point, basically said, it's not part of the job, we're not getting involved, and that was the end. And the
mic froze up. Everybody else okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
We lost Mike.
Let me ask you, and I'll ask Joe this, maybe he knows. So pace setter is already remediated. So this isn't a pace setter issue. This is all the other houses on Willow Grove? Is that what
Well,
we're talking about?
we don't know. So the first point that I'm bringing forth is that we
Well,
need
who's
to
getting
do
the
some
bottles of water, you know?
Oh, I know that the Haggertys are. They're the ones that brought this to our attention.
Okay.
The Ryan Haggerty and Jeff Haggerty's parents, I think.
I mean, to me, it just sounds like they extend the water main and they fix the problem.
I think that's,
Right? I
what,
mean,
that's where Mike was going with this. I'm
Yeah.
assuming-
But with that being said, the Haggertys were part of that, in theory, were part of the original problem, and they weren't going to extend the water line down to him. He lives down a very secluded driveway that would have been, as I'm being told, would have been extremely difficult, if not impossible, to run a water line down. So he kind of got excluded from that whole thing right from the word go.
So he's not he's the only house in Greenwich that we know of that's getting water?
Well, he's the only one that's been tested to the best of my knowledge. Maybe Mike can add a few more to it, but he's in such an aquifer position that there's probably several other that may even lead to downtown on South Main Street and such like that. You know, he's kind of tied into I'm going to say an aquifer, but something in that group that it could go down to the horse farm that's there, maybe the last few houses there on South Main, whoever's on a well, you know, it could be affecting there and even further down South Main. Those wells haven't been tested for it. The Haggertys were the only ones that have been tested for it at this point that I know of. But there's potential to be a couple more, if not a lot more. But that's where I figured that the state would be doing their testing and such. And I just know that that's a slow process.
So until we find out what the source is we don't really know what the recourse is.
Well, not even what the source is, how far the contamination actually goes.
Right, but we had Rio Tinto pay for the last one because they were the source, right?
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, they're not paying.
Who's going to be paying? You know, I think they need to resolve it, obviously. So it's just where the funds are coming from. The
Right.
state has to do it.
That's where it sounded like Mike was headed with that, but he's still off?
Yeah, no, he just texted me. He's trying to get back in now. Let me see if he's in the waiting room. Not yet.
Anyone recognize the names that Mike mentioned? Fred Mumford and Mark Herzberg?
No.
I just saw their names on letters that we got from DEP, but other than that, I don't know them.
So they're the NJDEP, you think?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do believe so, Joe.
Okay.
Yeah. They're with New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection.
Well, I guess you could move on until Mike gets back. Anything else you want from Joe?
No, Joe, you have anything else?
I'll hang out. I want to hear what Mike can add, if
You know,
anything.
we could try to discuss this real quick. We need to set budget dates. I'd like to do it on a Saturday morning if everybody's good. So next 3 or 1:30, 2:06 or 2:13, any good, bad, or indifferent for you?
Well, I don't want to, if I'm the only one that it's inconvenient for, I'll rearrange it, but I work Saturdays.
Okay.
But you know, if I'm the only one, I can make other arrangements.
What dates did you say?
January 30th, February 6th, or February 13th. I'd like to try to get one of those days in.
I'm good for all. Anyone?
I'm good.
Okay. I'm good.
Yeah, I am.
How about
too.
see your Rick Hummer, because they're going to be the first two up too. So let's see if they're available, Frank.
Sorry about that, folks. I know I was in mid-sentence, I think. Did I miss anything or?
No, we're
No.
going to come back. It looked like you're just about ready to tell us about the extension of the water line, and I'm assuming you're going with the cost and who's wants to pay for it.
Well, yeah, the bottom line is nobody wanted to even hear about it. And of course, nothing has been done and there's nothing planned to get done. And that's not going to solve the entire problem. That would solve a little portion of it. But, you know, that's far from being any solution to the problem at this point.
Okay. Is there anything we need or can do at this point, Mike? I mean, any letters we need to send or anything we can do or?
Well, I think the way I left it with, when I, again, spoke with the Mark Herzberg fellow down at DEP, he's gonna keep me in the loop on the progress, as far as the additional testing and any additional source contamination that they might be able to determine. And right now, they're in that mode. And I think it's, and this is kind of, in today's day and age, you'd like to think there's a better solution, but it sounds like they're just gonna, if somebody tests for this and it comes up, they're gonna deliver bottled water to them as the solution. And, the permanent solution yet to be determined. So,
You think we should at least memorialize your communications with them in a letter saying that you discussed it with us and that, we think that they need to keep a watchful eye on this, continue their testing, and that we certainly don't feel that delivering water to their house is a long-term solution, at least memorialize it?
there's no harm in that, sure.
If you don't mind, I think the priority has to be, in such a letter like that, the priority has to be that we identify the extent of it. And then the water is a mitigation, but we need to know how many properties, how many wells are affected.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
So Mike, you kind of understand what the gist of what we want to know?
So Mike, right now, how many properties? We only identified one in this meeting. I mean, how many are there? More than one identified in the town yet?
In Greenwich, yeah, I believe there's more than one in Greenwich, and there's quite a handful in Franklin. And right now, it's not a Franklin Greenwich thing. It's a dioxane thing. So they're looking at the municipal boundary is irrelevant to them at this point. They know they got a kind of a regional issue on their hands. And they're gonna, it's on their radar screen. It's not gonna go, they're not gonna look the other way. I was pleased to hear that anyway.
Well, you kind of know what we're looking for. Can you draft a letter? I mean, can you draft a letter asking, just tell them,
Sure.
thank you for what they've done. Let's be nice. Thank them for what they've done so far, but, we're urging them to continue monitoring, identifying, the extension of the plume and remediation, and that, it's a nice letter, but I think we should at least memorialize it.
No, that good idea. No harm at all. And sure, we'll put something together, and I'll send it to Mr. Lavery for his review.
Okay.
Hey, I got a question for Joe or Mike. How do they determine which homes to notify? Do they look at the actual aquifer and who has access to it? Like, should we be like notifying other people that they should be testing their water? Like, how does that work?
It's interesting. I don't know what prompted the measurement at the Haggerty's, but that's a question that occurred to me earlier today. So
It's like, I almost want to send a letter out to people as saying, we found this is an issue. You may want to contact the DEP to test your water.
Well, there's an interesting part to that, Frank. When you send water to a testing lab in New Jersey, it does not get tested for dioxane. The only way this came up, and I don't know why the hell it came up this way, excuse my French. One of the Franklin residents used a Pennsylvania lab and specifically asked for this, this chemical, this contaminant to be tested for. That's how it first came up. And then it's very peculiar. I mean, that's even the DEP guys like say, we don't tell you to test for this stuff. So, I mean, it's a special test that they run that includes dioxane. Now they do it. That's the other part of this, that a normal, when you get your well tested for typical, drinking water standards, it's not, dioxane is not one of the chemicals they test for.
So here's what I'm thinking. I live close to the area. I have well water. The town knows about this now. Nobody notifies me. The DEP doesn't notify me. I'm still drinking my water. To me, that's no good. I think that we have to at least send letters to people that this is an issue and that they need to contact the DEP to test their water. It's my opinion.
Guess the question is where do you draw the line? It's no, good point. And you're
Anybody
right.
that's on well water, I think needs to be notified. If the town knows about it, now they need to know about it.
Well, all right.
That's just,
What,
I mean, I'll throw it out to everybody. I don't know what everybody else thinks, but I'd hate to be the person living there that was never told. And I'm drinking this water all this time.
But are you saying we should send it to everyone so everybody in township, regardless of location, if they have well?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Send it to them, tell them to contact the DEP.
Well, I have no objection to doing that, but Mike, maybe before we decide what letter we're sending out, talk to when you send this letter to DEP, then follow up with a phone call and ask them if they have a certain number or where they want us to refer them to. There's nothing more aggravating than giving them a number and getting the machine that says you're calling for this, press one, and they're not going to know what to press or what to do. So if we're going to send a letter, I think we should at least send it with informative information on exactly who to contact or how. Or probably by email would be best, because if I was them, I'd want to start a paper trail with DEP too. So
Do we have the ability to identify everybody that's on well water in that area? Mike?
yeah.
All right, so I'll make a motion then that the township should send a letter to everybody on well water in that area, notifying that they may have an issue and they need to contact the DEP to test their water.
anybody want a second?
I'll second it.
I only have one question on that. Frank, do you want to have it sent before our next meeting? So are we going to authorize Mike or to get a phone number and stuff? Like, who are we going to direct them to call? Just to say the call DEP is not going to be sufficient.
I'll let Mike and the two Mikes work that out.
Okay.
Right? That's fine with me.
Do I have to work with him really?
You have to work with me.
Right.
I'm sorry.
And then Mike Finelli, you had said something interesting that that our DEP, the state, doesn't really test for that. So are we going to have to go, or are people going to have to go out of state to get that dioxin test, or can they request it by the state?
No, because of the situation, a conventional test back, before this came up, never tested for dioxin. Now, when they're running tests in our area, because of the obvious, now
So
they're
testing it. Okay.
And I think in that letter, Mike, you ought to put in there that we think DEP should fund the testing for anybody identified.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And then hopefully when we send it out, we can tell them that DEP has suggested to use these labs and they were reimbursed or they have an account there or whatever, however. That's why you need to talk about how the mechanism is going to work, I think. Okay. Okay.
Mr. Lavery and I will come up with a wonderful letter.
Back to the budget dates.
We
1:30.
need a roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Roll call, Lisa.
Mayor Barsney?
Yes.
Mr. Baylor?
Yes.
Mr. Beam?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Ms. McDermott?
Yes.
Okay. Back to the budget dates. Should we set two?
I think so, yeah.
Well, Lisa only has to put out one advertisement. I'm good at any of them. Frank, you said you're good at any.
I'm good at any of them. Yep.
You make yourself available if you can, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I will.
Yeah. And Brian, how about you? You good at any
Yeah.
dates?
I'm
You're
good. Yep.
How about Rich and Joe?
I am good the 6th. I'm not good on the 30th.
I
Okay.
can't,
I think he said he's good at 6th, not the 13th or not the 30th. I can't hear it either.
Yeah, not the 30th, Mayor.
Okay. Joe Mexi?
He's giving you a thumbs up.
Okay.
Giving you a
So here's, I know Rich isn't available. Do you want to do 1:30, skip a week and 2:13 or 2:06 and 2:14?
whatever you pick.
It's President's Day weekend, that 13th.
Anybody going away?
I'm not, I'm just letting everyone know.
I'm
I
not.
used to- When I was a skier, I went away every week a year for that weekend, so I don't pay attention anymore. I'm okay with 1:30 and 2:13 if everybody else is. And Rich Hummer will just have to come to 13th instead of 30th.
And do you think you should put another one on down the road just in
Um,
case?
I got to get back on you. I just realized 2:13 would not be good for me.
Okay, then let's do 1:30, 2:06. 2 weeks in a row.
Okay. At what
Just-
time?
I'd like to do it at 8 on a Saturday. Is that too early for anybody or?
It's fine
That's
with
good
me.
for me.
Works for me.
Okay. Well, Joe Mexi, be ready to go for all your hats that morning. DPW, fire, OEM, whatever, all your hats, have them with you that day. You giving me another thumbs up or a thumbs down?
Thumbs
He
up.
did thumbs up.
Okay.
And where are we having these meetings?
I guess we're gonna have to do it Zoom, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
I hear you. I'm actually getting tired of not seeing people in person, just to talk, just to talk, but. I mean, next month, a year, we had a meeting in person.
Wow.
Lisa, just
Okay.
remind me to set the meetings up, okay?
Yep, you got it.
Okay. Do we need to do that by motion, Lisa, so you can advertise?
Yes.
Set those.
That's fine, sure.
do
We have
need a
a-
motion?
1:30 and 2:06, right, Bob?
You don't need anything, right? You don't
Nope,
need a
I'm all
motion or
set.
anything? Okay, good. Anybody else have anything on that?
No.
Okay, let's open up for public comment. I'll make a motion, we open for public comment.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We just have Vicky and Bill.
Oh, Vicky, you're back. We missed you last month.
I'm asking you to unmute, Vicky. You have to unmute yourself. You're still muted, Vicky.
Okay,
There you go. There you go.
I said not as much as I missed you guys.
Very nice.
And I just want to say to Brian, welcome.
Thank
I
you.
haven't met you before, but good to see you. I do have, I know it's comment, but I just want a clarification on something on the mowing. So with the contracts, you guys actually contract out the mowing for the schools, and now you have to rebid those contracts because you want to take it all over? Did I understand that correctly?
I'm gonna unmute you, Joe.
Okay,
She asked about what you wanted to do with the school contract.
well,
What your
like I said,
proposal
I
was?
need that additional equipment, so this year, we would have to rebid it to contract it out for this year, 2022. If we purchase the equipment this year, it'll be ready to go for April. About mid-April is when mowing starts, April 1st to mid-April, all depends on how warm it is.
So the DPW will be doing the actual mowing as opposed to whoever had the contract before, or is it vice versa?
The DPW would be taking it over, which would be next year. The contractors have only been mowing the schools and town property since 2015. That was the first of contractors. Prior to that, the DPW did mow all the town properties and the two schools.
Okay.
That was a decision, a budget cut or whatever it was back then in 2015.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear on that.
Anything else, Vicky?
Nope, that's it for now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill, anything, Bill? Or Doris?
Nothing from us, thank you. Just Happy New Year to everyone.
Yeah.
Finally,
Yeah.
Nice
good to
nice
see all of you back.
Same to you.
Thank you. All right, I think that's it. That's all we have, Bob.
Okay. I'll make a motion, we close public comment.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
I'll make a motion, we go into executive session to discuss personnel matters. Anybody want a second?
second.
Does,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Does everybody have the executive session?
I
Everybody good?
don't, Frank.
You don't have it? Lisa,
No.
could you send it to him, Lisa? Do you have? it
Yeah,
sent?
it's in the original email for the meeting. It's just down further. You have to just
Okay.
Yeah,
page
and there's
down.
once again, when we go into executive, we end this meeting. We start another meeting and then we come back and we restart this meeting. So it's usually just to clean up things. It's usually not a lot to discuss, but if anybody wants to return, we're gonna restart the meeting within, how long do you think, Bob?
I'm hoping not more than 20 minutes.
Okay,
No lawyers or engineers are talking, so we should be on time.
Oh,
Okay.
now that wasn't nice, Mr. Mayor.
so I'm gonna end this meeting. Brian, you're gonna get the email from Lisa, or you're
I
gonna
just
check your
resent
email?
it.
Okay, all right, we're gonna end this meeting. We'll start the executive session.
Okay.
I assume